Okay, this is the second video now. I'm going to do a little bit of meat chopping. So like I mentioned in the first video, we need to be cutting up the meat into small chunks. This is the part that I'll be feeding the meat down into the grinder. So you put a little stack of meat in there and then you'll push it down here. So the meat needs to be small enough to comfortably go through this hole. My hands still smell of pork even though I've just washed them. That's because I've just been manipulating this beautiful pig here. Let's have a little taste of this tea. Nice. I'll bring you a bit closer. I'm not going to show you me cutting all of this up because that'd be quite boring, but literally what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut this meat up, put it in this bowl. Okay, I've weighed the bowl. What I'll do is I'll weigh the meat. That'll give me an idea of how much rusk. So I'll need 10% rusk. I think it's 10%. Yeah, it's 10% rusk. And then what you do is you put double the amount of water to rusk for it to soak up. It's science, guys. It's science. I quite like cutting that meat. Quite therapeutic, so we'll do a little chunk here. So yeah, that's about the size chunks we go through. You can get all sorts of meat grinders out there. Get some pretty amazing ones that probably would allow you to put a nice big piece of meat in. Certainly bigger than what I can put in there. But you know what? I'm not doing this for commercial purposes. This is just so that I can have a freezer filled with tasty chunks of sausage. I do like sausages. I love sausages. I've loved sausages ever since I was a little kid. Just cutting up the belly pork right now. Oh, look at that. It's like a little bit of bacon. Cheeky monkeys. What's that all about? Huh? What's that all about? Thin as you like. So what you'll notice, see how spready that is? Is that even a word? Spreadable? I don't know. Smeary. Smeary. It's soft at the moment. And so that there, going through the meat grinder, it's quite tough. Meat grinder likes it when it's a little firmer, so we will get all this entire dish, and I'll stick that in the freezer for, I don't know, maybe an hour. Basically, I don't want it completely frozen, but I want it to be firm enough that you can't do this with it, you know, squeeze it type thing. Oh, balls have dropped it. Well, can't use that now. Oh God, we'll just stick it on there. I'm going to wash that after anyway. Right. You don't want to be using bits of pork that you've dropped. That's fucking gross. So yeah, just continue to chop into chunks. I'm sure that there's better knives you can use and sharper knives. That's great. I did have a look online at knives. Fucking expensive, isn't they? But I think it's worth it if you're doing this a lot. I'm actually not. I tend to do this maybe every 2 months. Because, as you can imagine, right, by the time I cut all this pork up, and I put the rusk in, and I put the other ingredients in, I have a lot of sausages to work with. Now, let's have a look what we're dealing with here. I like to just cut off chunks. Ooh. That sound. Yeah, so if you've got a good sharp knife, you'll make small work of cutting through that skin. I think I'm actually cutting through the chopping board more than the skin here, but I work with what I got. I don't want the rind anyway, so you know, the fact that it's kind of getting jammed up on the rindy bit, it does help me because it means I can just scrape the meat off that bit and leave the rind there. So here we go. little chunks. Chunky chunks. What can I say? Well, some people will actually season the meat before they put it into their grinder as well. That's all well and good if you're not using any sort of binder like rusk. You can also, if you're lactose intolerant, what am I on about? If you've got, what is that thing where you can't have breads and stuff? I can't remember now off the top of my head, whatever the fuck it's called. You can actually use rice if you want to use a binder. So you can use rice instead. Can't remember off the top of my head whether it's cooked or not. I've never had to do it because I don't suffer with issues with, is it gluten? Might be gluten. So I've always used rusk, but I have seen you can use rice. Some people don't actually use it. I think it's more of a UK thing to put the binder in there, but and it's quite a hot topic on the sausage forums with people going, oh, I don't need it. And obviously some butchers out there might take the piss a little bit and actually use it to maximise profit, because obviously if you put a lot of binder in there, you put a lot of rusk, you're not using as much meat. Or you can use lots and lots of meat, but you're getting extra sausage weightage because you're essentially making most of your sausage out of rusk rather than meat. And that's just wrong. But you can always tell, you know when you get a sausage from the chippy, and it's essentially just a fucking paste. There's not much meat in that. And it's been emulsified, so it's been pulped. It will have been, no, that's not nice. A bit like artery. I'm not putting the arteries in. I cut the nasty bits off. You want the fat, you've got to get as much fat in there as possible. If you don't have much fat in your sausage, right, it'll be dry and gross. And I know if you've never made sausages before, and maybe you do like meat, but you're a bit like, oh my god, look at all that fat. Once it goes through the grinder, and it will go through the grinder twice, I think, this time, the fat is completely broken up. And when you cook with it, the fat will actually melt. It'll be completely mixed through the meat, and it'll be all melty. I don't think there's much more I can say. I'm going to carry on just hacking away at this. We'll weigh it out, and I think the next stage will be having a look at how much all this weighs and working out how much rusk we're going to use. Now, the spice blends I've got all measured out for these sausages right now are purely experimental. These are recipes I've never done before. They're recipes that I found online, but I've kind of adapted them slightly to go with what I've got. Like when I say I'm going to be smoking my sausages, I'm going to be cold smoking them and then freezing them so that we get a smoky flavour, but they're not sort of smoked as you would, if you smoke a piece of meat and then you can eat it. I just want to give them a nice smoky flavour, and then that'll be retained in it when we cook with it. Or when we cook it, I should say. That bit's a bit nasty. Don't like that bit. Okay, get out of there. Yeah, so the next stage will be weighing it out, getting the frickin' rusk in. Job done.